I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near her place that night. It was past midnight, the roads nearly empty, and the world around me felt like it had gone to sleep, except for my thoughts, which were wide awake and screaming her name. I'd told myself I was just going for a drive to clear my head, but that was a lie. I knew where I was heading, even if I pretended otherwise. The truth is, heartbreak has a way of navigating without GPS, and mine. It was programmed to circle her block until my pride gave out or the universe gave me a sign. That night, it gave me both. I remember seeing her porch light first. It was like a lighthouse in the fog, pulling me in even though I knew the rocks it would crash me against. I stopped my car across the street and just sat there, heart pounding like I was 17 again, and waiting outside a girl's house with a dumb hope in my chest. Except this wasn't high school. This was worse. This was after everything we'd been through, after the fights, the silence, the slow unraveling of something that once felt bulletproof. I'd lost her. I knew that. Or at least I thought I had. But the porch light flickered like it remembered. Me too. And then the door opened. She stepped out into the night like a memory come to life. Barefoot, her hair wild, untamed, like she hadn't even bothered to brush it. She wore one of my old t-shirts. Soft blue one she always stole from my drawer when we were still us. Seeing her like that knocked the breath out of me. What? She didn't look surprised to see me. Just tired. Sad, maybe even a little angry. But she didn't tell me to leave. Instead, she said, "You coming in?" Just like that. No build-up, no drama. Like we hadn't spent weeks avoiding each other, pretending we were fine. Like I hadn't broken something in her, and I had. I know. I had. I got out of the car without saying a word. Followed her up the steps, heart in my throat. The second I stepped inside her house, the smell hit me, vanilla candles and something soft underneath that. Could never quite place, but always made me think of her. Home, that's what it felt like, and it wrecked me. I didn't know what. I was walking into, but I knew I wasn't strong enough to turn around. We stood there in the dim light of her living room. The silence between us full of every word we hadn't said. She crossed her arms, stared at me like I was a puzzle she didn't know why she kept trying to solve. "You look tired," she said. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "You look. It's better than I remembered." A ghost of a smile passed over her lips. "Don't start with the lines, Ryan. I'm not. I mean it." I wanted to touch her. God, I did. But I didn't. I didn't know where we stood. If this was a trap, or just two broken people reaching for the only thing that ever made them feel whole. Every part of me was screaming to pull her close, but something in her eyes made me pause. There was pain there, sure, but something else too. Something darker. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered. "But I haven't slept in weeks. I keep thinking about you, about that night. And I don't know if I want to slap you or let you stay." That sentence hit me like a punch to the gut. Ha! I deserved the slap. Probably more. But I wanted her to let me stay more than I wanted anything else in the world. "Then let me stay," I said quietly. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was trying to read every line on my face, searching for lies. Then, without a word, she stepped aside and let me walk past her. That was it. No promises, no apologies. Just an opening. A moment I don't think either of us knew what would come next. We were both running on emptiness, on longing, on the ghosts of what we used to be, and for one night, maybe just one, we wanted to pretend none of the damage was real. That it could be undone by the heat of skin, the whisper of a name in the dark. The illusion of closeness, but something in the way she closed the door behind us felt final, like she wasn't just letting me in. She was setting something in motion. It wasn't until later that I'd realized this wasn't a beginning. It was a test, a reckoning. She was giving me a chance not to fix what we broke, but to see if I'd break again, and I would. God help me, I would. Asterisk, I wish I could. Say, the first thing I felt when I touched her again was love. But it wasn't. It was guilt. Sharp, immediate. and burning through my chest like I didn't deserve the way her fingers tangled in my shirt, pulling me close. But I let her. Of course I did. Because no matter how much I tried to move on, my body still knew hers like it was. Home, her breath hitched when I kissed her neck, just under her ear, where she was always most sensitive. She still remembered the way I moved. And I remembered every sound she made when she wanted more but didn't know how to ask for it. Our mouths found each other in the dark like magnets, hungry and urgent and reckless. It wasn't tender, not. Yet it was angry and desperate and full of things we couldn't say out loud, like I still want you, like you hurt me. Like, why did we let this die? We ended up on our couch, barely making it that far before clothes were being pulled, tugged, tossed aside like they were in the way of some deeper truth. I remembered every inch of her skin, the way she shivered when my hands moved down. Her back, how her breath would catch when I slowed down, when I made her wait. She knew how to break me too, knew what to say in that low voice that scraped against all my willpower, knew how to touch me like she was trying to erase the months between us. And maybe that's what we were doing writing Time with Skin. And heat, pretending none of it ever happened. But even in the fire of it, even as she moaned my name like it still meant something, I felt something else digging into my spine. A thought, a warning. This doesn't fix anything. This doesn't mean she forgives you. We collapsed together after. Breathless and tangled, her head on my chest like it belonged there. I wanted to hold her tighter, but I was afraid she'd pull away. I didn't know the rules anymore. I didn't know if this was one night or a second chance or the slowest kind of goodbye. I just lay there, running my fingers through her hair, trying to remember how to breathe like it didn't hurt. She spoke first. Do you think about it? I stiffened. About what? That night. The last one. When you left. I swallowed. Hard, every day. Silence. Then she pushed herself up, not angrily, just slow, like the weight of it was settling over her again. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders and stared at the darkened room, not looking at me. I waited, she said. I waited 3 days before I texted. You didn't answer. I sat in that kitchen crying like an idiot while you ignored me. I sat up, heart pounding. I wasn't ignoring you, Claire. I didn't know how to respond. I knew I hurt you. I didn't think you wanted to hear from me. Don't do that, she snapped, eyes flashing now. Don't make it sound noble. You walked out, you said you needed space. And then you disappeared. No explanation, no closure, just silence. I didn't know what else to do, I said, my voice breaking. I was scared. We were fighting all the time. You were pulling away. I could feel it. And I didn't want to be the one holding on while you let go. Her laugh was bitter. So you let go first? Nice. She had every right to be angry. Hell, I was angry at myself. But in that moment, all I could feel was regret so deep it made my ribs ache. I never stopped loving you, I whispered. She looked at me then, her eyes glassy but hard. Love's not supposed to feel like punishment. That line hit me harder than anything she'd said before, 'cause she was right. We had taken something beautiful and twisted it into a battleground. Somewhere along the line, we forgot how to be kind. And still, even now, I wanted to find my way back to her. I didn't come here to pretend we're okay, I said. I came because I couldn't not come. I still see you in everything. In the music I listen to, in the way I make my coffee. In the empty side of the bed, her eyes softened for a second. Just a flicker. But then she looked down, her voice small. Then why does it feel like too little too late? I didn't have an answer, only silence. And that silence grew until it filled the whole room, thick and sharp. She got up and disappeared down the hallway, leaving me alone on the couch, blanket still warm with her body. I sat there, naked and raw and aching, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life by showing up. Or if coming back was the only thing I'd gotten right in months. Somewhere in the house, I heard a door close, not slam. just quietly shut. And I realized this wasn't the end. Not yet. But it sure as hell wasn't the beginning either. The silence the next morning was louder than anything we said the night before. I woke up alone on her couch, sore in all the places I deserved to be. The blanket she'd wrapped around herself was folded neatly on the armrest, like she was trying to erase any evidence we'd collided again. The light coming through her blinds was pale and gray. It's the kind of morning that feels like it's already decided to be difficult. My mouth was dry, my thoughts worse. For a second, I let myself pretend we were back to before the fights. Before the walls, before I became someone she looked at like a stranger with her secrets in his pocket. But that fantasy cracked wide open the moment I stood up and realized she wasn't there. The kitchen smelled like coffee. Not the fresh kind that had been sitting too long, forgotten and bitter. Her mug was still on the table, half full, lipstick smudged on the rim. Mine wasn't there. She hadn't made one for me. That felt like something small, but it wasn't. I knew her. Claire always made 2 cups, even when she was mad. That morning, she'd made one. Just hers, a message in caffeine form. "You're not part of this anymore." I found her in the backyard, curled up on the old wicker chair under the tree we used to sit beneath when we talked about moving in together. About kids, about everything we thought we could be. She had a blanket wrapped around her knees and her phone in her hand, but she wasn't scrolling or texting. Just staring at the screen like it was about to deliver news she didn't want but couldn't stop waiting for. I cleared my throat. Soft but clumsy. "Didn't know you were up." She didn't turn around. "Didn't know you'd still be here." I winced. "You asked me to stay." "I asked," she said flatly, "but I didn't think you would." That stung in a different way. Not because it was cold, but because it was true. I hadn't stayed before. Not when it counted. I stepped out into the morning air, shivering as the chill bit into my skin. "Last night, I didn't come here just for that. Came because I miss you. Not just the way we were in bed, but all of it. You and me. I don't sleep anymore either, Claire. You think I haven't been going crazy, wondering if I threw away? The only thing that ever made sense." She looked up at me then, tired and hard-edged and beautiful in that way. Only someone who's been wounded by you can be. You didn't throw it away. Ryan, you lit it on fire and watched it burn while I begged you to try. My chest caved in. There it was. The truth I'd been dancing around, hoping maybe time had dulled its blade. But it hadn't. She still bled when she looked at me. "I know," I said quietly. "I didn't show up when you needed me most. I let you carry it alone." She laughed. But it was hollow. "You disappeared after the miscarriage, Ryan. Do you even get how broken that left me? You said we needed time, space, like grief was something you could walk away from and come back when it was convenient." My knees almost buckled. I hadn't expected her to say it out loud. We'd never really talked about it, not after it happened. We tiptoed around the pain like it was a sleeping animal we didn't want to wake. "I didn't know how to help you," I whispered. I felt useless. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed away. She finally looked me straight in the eyes. "And that's the difference between us. I didn't need you to say anything. I just needed you to sit next to me and not leave." Tears burned behind my eyes, and I didn't try to hide them. There was no pride left between us, no armor. Just damage and whatever came after. "I should have stayed," I said. "Every day since, I've wished I could go back. But you can't," she said softly. "And that's what I wake up with." I sat beside her slowly, not touching her, just close enough to feel the warmth of her next to me. We sat like that for a while, in the quiet, in the knowing. "No more." "Pretending I'm not asking you to forget it," I said. "I just want to find a way back to you, even if it's slow. Even if it's hard." Claire looked down at her phone again, fingers trembling slightly. "You don't even know the whole story." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, like there was something heavy on her tongue that might break the world between us again. Then she whispered, "I wasn't alone after you. Left, I tried to move on. With someone else, the words landed like a slap, even though I had no right to be angry. Still, jealousy flared hot and bitter. You slept with someone?" She turned her face to warn me, unreadable. I didn't say that, but if I had, would you blame me? I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the truth was, I would blame her. Even though I shouldn't, even though I'd left her drowning in silence, and for the first time, I realized getting her back might not mean getting us back. It might mean accepting who she became when I was gone. Asterisk, you think you're prepared? For the moment they tell you they were with someone else, but you're not even close. The words might come soft, quiet, wrapped in hesitation, but they land with the weight of a wrecking ball. I sat there on that wicker chair, the morning light cutting through the trees like a spotlight on my shame, and I realized how little control I had left. I wanted to ask every detail who he was, how it started, when it happened, but I knew that wasn't what this moment was about. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about owning the space I left behind. And God, I hated the fact that someone else had touched her in the places I used to claim like sacred ground. But hate or not, I couldn't ignore it. I gave her every reason to reach for someone else. The silence, the absence, the cowardice. That space between us didn't just appear, it was carved by me. One neglected moment at a time. Still, something in me snapped a little when she said it. Not in anger, in ache. Raw, deep ache. I felt like I was sitting across from a version of her I didn't know anymore, and yet every piece of her still felt like mine, which made it worse. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. Just looked out at the yard like the ground might offer her a cleaner truth than I ever could. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, trying to keep my voice steady. "Do you love him?" Her jaw tightened. She didn't answer right away. That pause dragged longer than I could handle. "No," she said finally. "I don't. But he was there when you weren't." I nodded. I had no right to judge her, but damn, hearing it like, that's so plain, so matter of fact, it stripped the breath right out of me. "Did you tell him about me?" I asked. She looked at me, tired but not angry. "I didn't need to. I cried his name once. Yours. While we were together, that was enough." A sharp wave of nausea hit me. I stood up, paced the edge of the patio like I could outrun that image in my head. Another man in the space that used to be ours. Her skin under someone else's hands. Her whispering my name while trying to forget me. I wanted to scream. To ask her why. To rage at both of us for letting things rot the way they had. But instead, I forced the bile down, turned back to her, and said the only thing I could that wouldn't make it worse. "I'm sorry." She blinked at me, startled. "You're not mad?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Of course I'm mad. I want to punch a wall every time I picture it. But what would anger fix? I left you. I ghosted you during the worst chapter of your life. You don't owe me loyalty, Claire. You owed me nothing. And I gave you less." That cracked something in her. I saw it in the way her shoulders curled in, like she'd been bracing for a fight I refused to give her. For the first time in months, she didn't look like a woman carrying a weapon. She looked like a woman carrying grief. Hours she stood up, walked slowly toward me, her arms crossed like she didn't know if she wanted to reach for me or keep herself protected. "I hated you," she whispered, "for a long time. I hated that you got to leave while I stayed behind and bled. I looked down. I hated me, too. I wanted to call you so many nights," she said, "to scream at you, beg you to show up. But I was afraid if I reached out and you didn't answer, I'd shatter." My throat tightened. I took a step closer. "I would have answered, Claire. Eventually, I just didn't know how to be what you needed." She looked up at me then, and God, her eyes, Those eyes that used to see straight through me, they weren't full of fire anymore. Just smoke. Wreckage. I didn't need you to fix me, she said. I needed you to hurt with me, to sit in the darkness and say, yeah, this is hell, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm here now, I said, voice cracking. Yeah, she said, but I don't know if that's enough anymore. And there it was. The cliff edge. The moment where love alone doesn't guarantee anything. Where time and pain and choices hold the final vote. Still, I reached for her hand, not to pull her close, not to beg, just to say, I'm still here. You want me to be? She didn't pull away, but she didn't squeeze back either. And in that fragile silence, I realized something that gutted me even more than her confession. She might never come back fully. She might have left pieces of herself in the arms of someone else. Not out of betrayal, but survival. And now, if I wanted her again, I'd have to love all the versions of her that survived my absence, even the one that didn't need me anymore. The worst part of heartbreak isn't the moment they leave. It's the moment you realize they might have healed without you. Claire's hand rested in mine that morning, like something borrowed, not returned. Like she wasn't sure if it still belonged to me or if it ever really had. And as we stood on her porch surrounded by ghosts of the life we almost had, I started to understand something I hadn't let myself feel before. Regret doesn't rewind the story. It just makes the ending harder to read. She went inside without a word, and I followed like a man chasing his shadow, always a few steps too late. She made another cup of coffee. This time a fragile olive branch, maybe. Or a habit that hadn't completely died. I took it without saying thanks, because I knew what we needed wasn't politeness. It was honesty. Brutal, unfiltered, painful honesty. And it was coming. I could feel it pressing at the corners of the room like a storm you try to ignore until the thunder cracks. I need to tell you something, she said, barely above a whisper. I nodded, mug clutched in both hands like a shield. Okay. It wasn't just one time, she said, with him. Which a few months. It became something. The room spun, slow and sickening. I felt like the floor fell out from under me, but didn't let it show. I didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice. I just took the blow and swallowed it like glass. You said you didn't love him, I managed. I didn't, she said quickly, but I needed someone, and he was kind. He showed up. And eventually it got easy to pretend I was, okay? Even if it wasn't real. I looked at her, Lily looked and saw it. The war behind her eyes. She hadn't told me to hurt me. She told me because she needed me to understand the wreckage, the cost of my absence. Still something inside. Me cracked open, wider than before, months, while I was spiraling alone. Thinking about her every night, she was finding comfort in someone else's arms. It didn't matter that she didn't love him. What mattered was that she'd stopped waiting for me. Was he good to you? I asked, voice thick. She hesitated at first. Yes. I caught the shift in her tone like a needle dragged across. A record, at first. She turned away from me, staring out the window like maybe the glass could offer her the courage to finish. It wasn't what I thought. He was sweet, supportive, but then, I don't know, possessive? Controlling? It got weird. My stomach turned. Did he hurt you? She shook her head. Quick. No, not physically, but emotionally, yes. He'd say things to make me doubt myself. Made me feel guilty for still loving you. Said I was broken because I couldn't give him what he wanted. What did he want? She looked at me then. And this time, her eyes weren't tired. They were scared. He wanted me to erase you, block your number, delete every photo. He got angry when he found one in my drawer. I told him I still had to grieve you. And he said grief was just an excuse to keep a door open to a man who didn't want me. I clenched my jaw. What did you do? I left, she said, eventually. But not before I lost parts of myself trying to please him. I crossed the room and wrapped my arms around her before she could stop me. She stiffened at first, then melted into me, her face against my chest like the months hadn't passed. Like we'd never broken, but I knew better. I knew how fragile it all was. She'd been through hell first with me, then with someone who saw her pain as a weakness to control. "I'm sorry," I whispered. For all of it, she pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. "I don't know if I can love you the way I used to. I'm not that girl anymore." "Good," I said. "I don't want the girl I left behind. I want the woman standing in front of me now, the one who survived." She stared at me for a long moment. Then something shifted. Her shoulders loosened. Her fingers brushed mine again. "I don't know where this goes, Ryan," she said. "Scared it'll fall apart again." "So am I admitted. "But I'm not running this time." She looked at me like she wanted to believe me, and maybe for the first time she actually did. But just as the air between us started to soften, her phone lit up on the table. "Unknown number," she paled. "Is that him?" I asked, already knowing. The answer? She didn't speak. Just reached for the phone with shaking hands. The past wasn't done with her. And now I knew, if I wanted to be part of her future, I'd have to face the ghost of the man who almost broke her. And I'd have to do it by her side. Asterisk, it's strange how quickly fear returns. Even after everything you've already survived. One phone call, one name you hoped you'd never hear again. One look on the face of the woman you're trying to love back into herself. That's all it takes. Claire's hand trembled around her phone like it was made of ice. She didn't answer it. Stared at the screen, paralyzed, until it went dark. My pulse hammered slow and steady, the way it does when your instincts tell you you're standing too close to something dangerous. I didn't ask again if it was him. I didn't need to. The answer was written all over her tight jaw, wide eyes, shoulders drawn like she was bracing for impact. That man still had a grip on her. And I hated that I'd ever left her vulnerable enough to let someone like him get in. She sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't quite hold her up, and I followed, staying close but not too close. I knew enough. Now to let her set the pace. She looked at me, her voice barely a breath. "He's been texting from different numbers. Leaving voicemails. Nothing threatening exactly, but unsettling. Like he's still watching." I kept my tone calm, steady. "Have you told anyone?" She shook her head. "No one would believe me. There's no proof. Just this feeling in my gut that he's waiting for me to crack." I reached for her hand and held it gently. "Then we go to the police. You don't have to handle this alone." She stared at me for a long moment like she wanted to believe. I meant it this time, and I did. God, I did. Every part of me wanted to protect her. Not because I thought she was fragile, but because she'd been strong for too long and deserved to let someone else carry the weight for once. We filed the report that afternoon. It wasn't dramatic. No flashing lights, no promises of justice, just paperwork. Statements, screenshots of numbers. An officer with tired eyes and a half-hearted nod, but it was something, a beginning. Later, back at her place, she curled into my chest on the couch, the TV playing something neither of us watched. Her breathing slowed, her fingers absently tracing the scars on my knuckles, scars she knew. Scars she'd kissed long ago before everything between us burned down. "I hate that he still lives in my head," she murmured. "Like there's a room he refuses to leave." I kissed the top of her head. "Then let's give you the keys back." She looked up. "Do you think it's that easy?" "No," I said, "but I'll help you change the locks. One door at a time." At night, she didn't invite me into her bed, but she didn't ask me to leave either. We fell asleep on the couch, tangled in silence, her heart beat against my chest, the only sound I needed. It wasn't passion this time, it was trust. And maybe that was more intimate than anything we'd ever done with our bodies. The next few weeks were slow. We rebuilt in fragments old jokes, quiet breakfasts, moments that felt almost like before. But not everything could be patched. Some parts were gone for good, and maybe that was okay. We weren't trying to get back to what we were. We were learning who we could be now. One morning, while she was brushing her teeth and I was making coffee, she came out of the bathroom holding a small white box in her hand. My heart paused. "I found this in the drawer," she said, holding up a pregnancy test. I blinked. "Yours?" She shook her head. "No, it's old. Expired." His silence dropped heavy between us, Claire. I started, unsure what I was asking. "He wanted me to get pregnant," she said. "Said it would anchor us. Said I owed him that after everything he gave up to be with me." I set the coffee mug down, careful not to let it shake. "Did you?" she said quickly. "I never took it. I hid it. Was too scared to throw it away. It's like somehow if I acknowledged it existed, it would come true." The thought of that man trying to trap her with a child made my stomach turn. Rage sat low in my chest like a coiled fist, but I didn't explode. I just wrapped my arms around her and whispered, "You're safe now." And slowly, she believed it. It took months. But the texts stopped. The numbers went silent. And though he never faced consequences that felt like justice, Claire started to breathe easier again. She opened the curtains more. She laughed louder. One day she even said, "I almost feel like myself again." And I smiled and told her, "You're not her anymore. You're stronger." The first time we made love after everything, it wasn't wild or desperate. It was quiet, reverent, like we were relearning the language of each other's skin. She cried afterward, not because she was sad, but because she'd finally stopped holding her breath. I held her until she slept, and I knew no matter what came, next time would never walk away again, because sometimes love doesn't return the way it left. Sometimes it finds you in the ruins. And this time, it stays.